Welcome to the Reddit Rocket, and this is r/Prorevenge, where people become vigilantes and take justice into their own hands. I had to create a throwaway account for this one. This took place over 10 years ago, but I still don't really want this associated with me for reasons that will become apparent. There was this girl who used to be a bartender at my favorite local pub. I'll call her Nikki. I went there a lot and we gradually became friends. Apparently she wanted to date me at one time, but I was too oblivious to get hints, but that's a whole different story. She had this one guy who she was on and off with. I'll call him Tim, who was like 15 years older than her. She was 27 at the time and a total idiot. He would do normal idiot stuff like borrow money from her and never repay, calling her fat even though she was a solid 10 out of 10, tall, blonde, and had a great body, got mad at her when she hung out with other guys, etc. She stopped coming in to work for a while, and one of the other bartenders told me that she had hurt her foot or something, so I decided to give her a call. Turns out she was in the hospital, so I decided to give her a visit and brought her a pizza from this place next to the pub that we used to go to. On the phone she told me she'd stepped on a piece of glass, but I knew from the moment that I saw her foot that this was a lie. It was a total mess, stitches everywhere, her whole foot and calf were bruised, and there were even tubes coming out of the top to drain fluids. It was brutal to look at. We talked for a while and I cheered her up a bit. Good pizza makes everything better. I asked her to tell me what really happened and she started crying. She told me that Tim had thrown her out on his balcony. They were living together for about a month at this point and slammed her foot in the sliding glass door. It was broken in a bunch of places and had to have screws put in to hold it together. She then confessed that he had hit her in the past and threatened to do it more if she tried to leave him. Not okay. Now I should give you some background on myself at this point. I am big, 6'7", 270 pounds, but in no way a tough guy. I have worked in programming and IT since I was in high school and was working as an information security analyst for a nationwide ISP at the time. I had dabbled in some harmless hacking in the past, but nothing targeted or malicious. Well, now I had a target, and holy F was I feeling malicious. Now I should probably say this. Hacking someone like what OP is about to do is low-key illegal and borderline r/nuclear revenge. I want to build a community that is positive but can joke around at the same time here. That being said, please don't get any ideas and try to hack someone. I knew where Tim lived, having dropped Nikki off there a couple times, and I knew his Wi-Fi used WEP encryption because I had helped her with a problem with her laptop once. WPA and WPA2, now completely standard, are fairly secure. WEP, I can crack my way into in a matter of minutes. Google AirCrackNG if you want to learn how. I park near his apartment complex and use a Yagi antenna to connect to his network. Now I won't go too far into the details of what I did, but it amounts to a type of man-in-the-middle attack where the port 433 traffic is dropped, forcing websites to use HTTP rather than HTTPS. This is impossible these days, but back then it wasn't that uncommon. Next, I used a program called Wireshark to capture packets and filter them for HTTP login cookies. I then used a Greasemonkey script called Cookie Injector, available on GitHub, to insert the cookies into a Firefox browser session on my laptop. This resulted in me being logged into his Facebook, Hotmail, and online poker accounts from my laptop. I then used a deauthorization packet attack to deny him access to his own router. I didn't want any interruptions. Using my phone as a 3G modem, I changed the password to his Facebook and all his other accounts. Then I made a post with a picture of Nikki's messed up foot, and the message read, "This is what happens when I get angry." I tagged his mother, sister, boss, and a bunch of his friends from the pub and co-workers. Now comes the part where I might have crossed the line. I had a really sweet DSLR camera at the time, telephoto lens, great low light sensitivity, etc. I'd used it to take a picture of him through his window while he was sitting at his desk playing online poker before beginning my attack. This is also how I knew he would be online. I used GIMP to add a crosshair to the photo and centered it on his head. I then emailed it to him from himself with the text, "Mess with the best, die like the rest. Next time you hurt her, I will make you beg me to kill you." It sounded a lot less cringy at the time. Now, to me this had been meant to scare him a little, maybe get him in trouble with the people he cared about, nothing more. I found out a few weeks later that he had been fired and his whole family wasn't talking to him. Nikki said he had changed his number and wouldn't talk to her. A week or so later I found out that he had left town and nobody knew where he had gone. I know what I did was probably a little too extreme, but I gotta say, I'm not the least bit sorry. So this story was posted by Nat Master Flash. I gotta say the execution of his plan was just excellent, but dang, it really did ruin Tim's life. I don't think Nat was trying to ruin his life, but Tim did have it coming though. I personally can't stand anyone who would abuse another person in any shape or form. So Nat Master Flash, if you're watching, way to stand up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves. You're a true vigilante. This happened about 12 years ago while I was studying aeronautical engineering. Due to some money-grubbing legislation tactics, most who have gone to college know about the unnecessary courses that are tacked onto the degree in order to graduate. One of those courses for my degree was a business class. Seriously, you'd think these guys would understand that most engineers don't do the business side of things. Thankfully, we had a teacher who was understanding of the fact that many of us were bored out of our minds. I'll admit to always having been a geek/nerd who loved making good grades. If I don't understand something, I'd run at it hard to try and change that. This class stumped me for quite some time, and then a nightmare project was announced. One worth 50% of our grades. The school was a small one, the class was a little more than 30 people, and I was assigned to work with 3 people that I knew from other classes. We had problems straight away. 2 of the people remembered me from a calculus class that they barely passed as a person who sailed easily through and decided to dump their portion of their work on me straight away, knowing I wouldn't allow myself to fail. They were right. At first, my other group member tried to pick up the slack as well, pulling hard to do a difficult project in a subject we barely understood. I'll admit she was a trooper. Unfortunately, she was also someone easily manipulated, and our other 2 slacking group members began applying pressure during the semester for her to take the work and allow them to present it. The day of the project finally comes and I'm sick as a dog, pretty much quarantined in the clinic due to bronchitis. I managed to send a message to the teacher. The 2 slackers managed to wrangle the presentation from the girl who worked with me and presented it to the class, declaring that they had done all the work and I was skipping class because they told me that they were going to tell the teacher what happened. My initial grade was an F. I was beyond pissed until I realized something important. Part of the project involved a written report, of which I held the only copy since I was the only one to type it up. Cue the revenge. Privately, I went to the teacher with my notes and the report in order to get the grade I earned and to get him in on the plot. He agreed since it seemed fun and he had planned to fail them anyways for academic dishonesty. Publicly, there wasn't a report. The classmates that had attempted to take all the credit began to approach me, first demanding the report. Most of the time, my response was, "But I didn't do any of the work," in a sickly sweet voice. Next, they attempted to act all buddy-buddy, trying to convince me that it had all been a joke and promising they'd tell the professor that I had done some work, giving me some credit so that I had the possibility to pass. This was met with stony silence on most occasions before I told them that I'd rather fail than let them pass. Things escalated after that to include the door of my dorm room being rapped on at odd hours of the night, shoving, and them stealing my backpack and notebooks in order to find the report themselves. One of them even asked my roommate to let them search for a report I had written and forgotten for our group. Didn't have her as my roommate the following semester. Things finally came to a head on the last week of classes. I held out on them for a month, not telling any of my group mates what I had done, and enough time had elapsed that even if they were to turn in the report now, it would be so late that they'd still have failed. They hadn't even attempted to do the report themselves, and the girl who had worked with me was in hysterics over the very real possibility of failing the class. It was what the teacher and I had been waiting for, and he finally decided to return the reports. The 2 slackers glared daggers at me as the teacher returned the report of every other group in the class before stopping in front of them. He was holding what looked to be 1 extra report, and they were immediately looking hopeful. He set a single sheet of paper on one of their desks before moving to the desk of the girl who had worked along with me and set the report on her desk. "I had to dock some points for dishonesty, but you and your partner did decently," he stated before moving on. My partner realized what I had done. We only got 82s on our project, but it was far better than the 0 that our ex-group mates received. I had been carefully documenting the harassment that these 2 slackers had put me through and ensured several witnesses saw some of what they did. 2 days after being informed that they were failing, the pair had a new problem. I gave the evidence to the administration of our school and the teacher reported the academic dishonesty. The administration did a bit more digging and found out the pair had been making trouble for some time, and a number of students reported similar problems of having their work stolen. The slackers were expelled. This story was posted by Soraya19. All I gotta say is how relatable this was. I've had multiple situations where I did all the work for a project and people just leech off you and get an A, even though you did all the work. This story was satisfying since the slackers actually got punished for once. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed my content, hit the subscribe button as I will try to consistently make more videos on different subreddits. Feel free to leave feedback in the comment section. Got a blast!